Hi, in this video, we're going to take a look at some examples of using the law of cosines to solve triangles. So solve each and round to one decimal place. So we have the measure of angle A is 60 degrees, the length of side B is 20, and the length of side C is 30. So again, it doesn't matter how you set your triangle up, just as long as it meets the criteria that's given to you. All right, so here we have an example of knowing two side lengths and the measure of the angle between them. And that's called a side angle side triangle, where you know the two side lengths and the angle measurement between them. With side angle side and with side side side, we use the law of cosines. Now, the good news is if you don't remember that and you try to use the law of sines, you're not going to get very far, because if I try to use the law of sines on this and try to do something like the sine of 60 over A equals the sine of B over 20, there's two variables in that equation. I'm not going to be able to know what the value of any one of them is. So if that's the case, I can't get very far. That means that I picked the wrong law to use and I need to use law of cosines. Likewise, if we try to do law of cosines on an angle side triangle, we're not going to get very far before we hopefully realize, oh, I have to use law of sines on that. So it does provide you with a little bit of insurance to make sure you don't solve a triangle the wrong way. All right, so with side angle side, the good news is if you can solve a side angle side triangle with law of cosines, you can solve the sides as well. So we need to find the length of side A, the measure of angle B, and the measure of angle C. Now, fortunately for us, there's really only one thing we can do at this point, and that is we have to find the length of the side opposite the angle we know. In this case, we have to find the length of side A. So we got A squared equals 20 squared plus 30 squared, that's B squared plus C squared, minus 2 times 20 times 30 times the cosine of 60. And we get A squared equals 700, which means if we take the square root of 700, we get about 26 and a half. So A is about 26 and a half. Now, for B and angle C, it doesn't matter which one we find first. Whichever one we find first, we can then use the fact that the triangle's angles add up to 180 degrees to find the third. So with that, we're going to find angle B just because I had to pick something. So we're going to plug it into that cosine of B from the last video. So we have the cosine of angle B equals 26.5 squared plus 30 squared minus 20 squared over 2 times 26 and a half times 30, or A squared plus C squared minus B squared all over 2 times A times C. Now, when we type all this into our calculator, we get about 0.56 or 0.7561 rather. So the cosine of angle B is about 0.7561. So if we take the inverse cosine of 0.7561, we get about 40.9 degrees for angle B. And again, we can check to make sure that seems reasonable. 40.9 is smaller than 60. The side opposite 40.9 to 20 is smaller than 26.5. So at least that works out. Now to find angle C, it's going to be 180 degrees minus 60 minus 40.9. We could do the cosine of C part, but because we already have two angles of the triangle, why not just use the triangle angle sum? And we get angle C is about 79.1 degrees, which, because it's across from the biggest angle, it should be, or because it's across from the longest side, it should be the biggest angle, and it is. So just collecting everything together. Again, I do not grade your pictures. I grade what you have here as your final answer. You get A is about 26 and a half. The measure of angle B is about 40.9 degrees. The measure of angle C is about 79.1 degrees. All right, example 4, here we have a side triangle. You know the lengths of the three sides. Essentially what we're going to do is the cosine of A or the cosine of B or the cosine of C first, then do it for a second angle, and then use our triangle angle sum. So if the side angle side example in the last example went okay, this one should be pretty easy going for you. So pick an angle to find first. I chose angle A, so the cosine of A is 9 squared plus 4 squared minus 6 squared, all over 2 times 9 times 4, because we have A is 6, B is 9, C is 4. That simplifies to 61 over 72. If you have a decimal, that's okay too. We're going to do the inverse cosine of 61 over 72, and we get about 32.1 degrees for angle A. Now we need to pick either B or C. I picked B, so we have cosine of b equals 6 squared plus 4 squared minus 9 squared over 2 times 6 times 4, which gives us the cosine of angle b is negative 29 over 48. Because it is negative and cosine's negative in the second quadrant, I'm sure that b has to be bigger than 90, and it is 127.2 degrees. Excuse me. Finally, angle C, just use the fact that we have 32.1 and 127.2. Subtract that from 180, we get angle C is about 20.7 degrees. So the measure of angle A is about 32.1 degrees, measure of angle B is about 127.2 degrees, and the measure of angle C is about 20.7 degrees. So, all right, that about does it for this video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.